Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Degenerate Disseminators podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and we are back horizontal, guys. Sorry about last episode. Tried to record a reel on here, forgot to set the resolution back, so my apologies. But pretty solid day. Past 4 days have really been like, we're kind of just coasting through the month here at this point. Um, we had four plays go out. We go 2-2 up 0.35 units. We had the Heat +1 for 1.1 units. They demolished the Bulls. That game was never close. The Heat are one game away from going to the playoffs, which would be awesome to see. Kings -4.5. I really, yeah, I could sit here and make a whole 45-minute episode about this game. I really do not know what the Kings were doing. Um, they didn't even look like horrible defensively. I know you're going to be like, Jordan, they put up 120 points on them. But they did string together some big chains of stops, but they just could not score the ball for the life of them when it mattered. Had plenty of opportunities to go on some, smooth, like 8-9-0 runs, but they just couldn't score. They just looked very lazy. Anthony Davis was on the floor on the other end of the court half of this game, and they still couldn't capitalize on it. I don't even remember what the final score was. I think the Mavericks ended up winning by 14. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, the Kings were down 20. The majority of this game, unfortunately. And with that bet, obviously the two-leg parlay goes under as the Kings do not win. But the game total hit. Looking back at it, probably should have just played that. We could have been up 3 units today, but I guess I will admit I got a little greedy here. But it happens. Still had a winning day. Due to the Red Wings Devils game also going over 5.5 goals. We did look totally dead here. They had 2 goals going into the third, and they put up 5 goals in the third period. So very, roller coastery type day here on the podcast, or yesterday, I should say. But got a winning day. We've had 4 straight episodes, or days of picks. I think we've had episodes for all 4 of these days. Between Instagram plays, every play we made official. In our little grouping that we do. 4 days without losing, so I'll take it. But moving forward, guys, do want to touch up on something. As we head into the postseasons of our two most bet on sports here being basketball and hockey. Things are gonna start looking a little different. We're not gonna be making episodes every day. There's a game. I kind of did touch up on this yesterday, I believe, but heading into the postseason, a lot of the stats kind of just go out the window. A lot of the trends just go out the window. Playoffs for both of these sports in the NBA and the NHL are very different. Lineups are very different. Atmosphere, you name it, everything is different. Maybe after the first round, we can start looking at player props, things like that. But we probably are going to be a lot less, active on here. I'm going to be trying to use that time, putting out some short form content on Instagram and TikTok, which if you guys aren't following us, please do so at DD Sports Podcast on both. Links to those will be down below. But yeah, I do have a play for a golf tournament, actually, that starts today, the RBC Heritage Tournament. I will get into that in a second. What else did I want to touch up on before we start, before I give out some picks? I do have 2 more series bets for the NBA. We got some lines today, thankfully. But yeah, I'm kind of gonna be rolling over, a lot of our profit from this month into some long term or relatively long term stuff. These are only for the first round, so be like a week and a half around there. So nothing too crazy, but that's kind of what I'm looking at. Like I said, I don't want to fall into these traps of betting on each game individually, which a lot of people do. I fell victim to that last NBA playoffs, unfortunately. So, kind of trying to learn from my mistakes and really just secure a very solid month on the podcast, which I hopefully can do. But before we kick it into the picks, like I said, check us out on Instagram and TikTok. And if you guys haven't checked out Pick It already, please use that link down below. Great app, bet tracking, estimated value. You can copy and paste bets. You can post your bets if you want to share them with your friends, and they can copy it and paste it into their own books. And if you live in a state with multiple sports books, you can also look at the odds of every sports book available and really make sure you're getting the best value for your hard-earned dollars on these sports, guys. But and you also do get some money upon signing up, absolutely for free. So please be sure to check them out. But yeah. So for Thursday, NHL playoffs are already set. Um, Daniel did try to look, at any games, player props, anything to work with really. But it's just so hard to predict because literally no one playing tomorrow has anything to play for, as the brackets and standings are already set. So that's why he's not here today. Just me. Sorry if you guys came here for Daniel. But yeah. No NBA today either. So that's why I started looking at some futures bets. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. So we're gonna kick it into the picks portion now, which you guys came here for. Sorry I rambled for 6 minutes, but just kind of want to let you know where we're at currently. But looking at the RBC Heritage Tournament in the PGA Tour, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I really don't know much about golf. But I do listen to a lot of sports betting podcasts. Kind of try to I do bet a lot personally outside of the stuff that we put out on the show. Um, and I also just enjoy, listening about it. So I do know a little bit, kind of know who's been doing good, things like that. But pretty surface level stuff from a betting perspective. I did watch the Masters this past week. I did watch all 4 days. Surprisingly, I feel like people who don't really get put on to golf early on kind of find it boring. I don't know why I decided to watch it, but I had a good time. Um, but yeah, like I said, not too well versed in golf, so it's kind of just something for fun to keep an eye on, since we're probably not gonna have any picks coming out. Besides some NHL futures maybe. I don't know, just something to keep your eye on. Have a little fun with it since we are having a good month. Um, I did do a lot of my own research, since I'm clearly not well knowledgeable on golf. Um, a lot of simulations though do suggest Corey Connors, despite opening up, as a 25-1 underdog in this tournament, has what it takes to make a pretty deep run into this tournament. Um, you know, like I said, I did watch the Masters. I know he did tie for eighth in that tournament. Shot 5 under, so nothing too bad. Pretty solid for Corey here. He has finished tied for eighth or better in 4 out of his last 5 tour starts, and he has 5 top 10 finishes on the PGA Tour this year. Um, yeah, so he's in our ballpark. Obviously this tournament isn't going to be as star-studded as the Masters. You do have defending champion Scotty Scheffler in here, as a lot as there are some guys that were in the Masters here as well who maybe didn't perform as good as they wanted to. But I do think Corey Connors does fit into that. Um, but yeah, his last championship win was in 2022. So I'm sure he's hungry to get another one. And I think this could be a good spot for him here. And it's good value. So we're going to do it here. Like I did say, he did open up the odds at 25-1. I caught him at about 22.5-1. So he's at plus 2250. I'm going to take it. Why not? I'm going to, watch this tournament throughout the weekend, or the end of the week, end of the weekend. Give me something to keep my eye on, as the NBA playoffs do not kick off until Saturday. So give me Corey Connors to win the RBC Heritage Tournament for half a unit, and that'll give us 11 units and change in return. I'm sorry, it's 1:32 in the morning, guys. I don't feel like doing math, but that's pretty much the only play we're making official today. I mean, I guess, does that count as a futures bet? I don't know. I guess not, since it starts tomorrow. The odds are going to change. We might hedge this, depending on how well I can keep track of this tournament. If I do decide to hedge it, I will be making those plays official on Instagram. So please keep an eye out there. But we'll see. This is kind of more just for fun. But moving into some more serious bets, we do have 2 new series bets for the NBA playoffs in the first round. First series we are going to look at is the Bucks versus the Pacers. For the game total here, or like series length, the line's at 5.5 games. This is going to be a super fun series. If you guys didn't watch our playoff preview with my good friend Wesley, we did talk about a lot of the things going on in this series. I think it's going to be super fun. Milwaukee has lost their last two playoff runs in the first round, and back-to-back seasons. So I do think Giannis, he wants to. I'm not saying the Bucks are going to guaranteed to make it super far, but I do think Giannis definitely wants to make it out of the first round for the first time in 2 years. I do think this is going to be very back and forth. Indiana does have a great offense, but they do lack defense. And, Giannis is a very tough defensive assignment. If they have an off night on offense, which we have seen throughout this season, I do think the Bucks can easily pick up a couple of wins in this series and win it outright even. But same thing can be said vice versa. Um, and we also did talk about if Dame coming back is if and when that's going to happen. I do think if Dame does come back, this Bucks team is going to look much better, have a much better ball handler. But like I said, is he going to be there for game 1? Is he going to be there for game 4? No one knows yet. So I guess we'll have to see. But important to note, last year, this was the same first round matchup, and Indiana did bounce Milwaukee in 6 games. So I think we have to lean towards the over here. A lot of questions to be answered, but I think the losing team can at least pick up 2 games, and that's really all we need. So I know for the first futures bet we took, or the series bets, sorry, we took Pistons plus 2.5 for 1.45 units to get 1 unit back. This bet is at minus 170. Pretty steep, but like I said, I think this is pretty likely to hit. So I'm gonna play it a little bigger here, just kind of tossing it out there to see what happens. But we are gonna go in on this bet for 3 units to win back 1.75. Call me crazy, whatever. But for tying up a lot of money in these series bets, we're not gonna have much action. In the near future. I mean, 3 units is like an average night of 3 picks for us, so I think it balances out. And 1.7 units would be very nice to come back to, so I will take that for sure. Next series we're going to be looking at is the Warriors versus the Rockets. Series total is also set at 5.5 games. This is going to be a very defensive heavy series, I think. Like I said, I feel like the Rockets are they've kind of just flown under the radar this year. I have touched up on how the Warriors actually do have a pretty sneakily good defense. Gonna be a very taxing series for both teams for sure. I think fatigue is gonna be a big issue here. Could lead to some off nights for either of these teams. And I do want to touch up on how the Milwaukee game went. Milwaukee has a much worse defense than Houston, and it was still a relatively close game. So I do feel like a lot of these games are going to be even closer than that, which is kind of hard to say given how close the Memphis game was. But yeah, I do see, once again, I do see the losing team in this series at least picking up 2 games. It's going to be very grindy, very taxing, very draining for both teams. And this is a very interesting matchup to look for in the Western Conference here. And I believe Dillon Brooks, I feel like it was against the Warriors. I feel like they had some beef when Clay was still on the team. So this should be a pretty interesting narrative to see in the series here. But yeah, once again, it does come down to like young versus old, like it did with the Memphis team. I do think the Warriors take this, but if they have, if we're going based off the Memphis game included, I think as long as we have 2 close games in the series, and give Houston a chance to snag them, I do think we will see at least a game 6 in this series, and potentially even a 7th. Who knows? But same story here, guys. We're going over 5.5 for total games in this series. This one's at minus 200, so we are doing another 3 units, and that'll give us 1.5 units back. I really do think both of these cash. So although we are putting 6 units out total for these 2 games, 7.45 including the Pistons game. Or Piston series, sorry. That'll give us it's 4.25 units for turn. So I mean, not the best, obviously. That's kind of crazy value how we've been playing things so far this year, or since we started the show. Sorry, but I think it'll be worth it. Given we do have a nice cushion. I believe we're approaching up 7 units, so that'll put us in the double digits. These all hit, which I do think they will. So that's gonna do it for me today, guys. Official play for Thursday. The only one we have, Corey Connors to win the RBC Heritage Tournament, and then we are adding the Corey Connors bet is for half a unit, and 2 more series bets being added for the NBA playoffs, over 5.5 games for the Bucks Pacers series, for 3 units, and then another 3 units on over 5.5 games for the Rockets Warriors series. As far as things coming up, like I said, not going to be giving out daily picks on here. We're looking more long-term stuff. But tomorrow, or I guess, we record pretty late, Friday morning, we will have a full NHL playoff breakdown, as well as some futures bets on there, which should be a fun episode with Daniel. But that's gonna do it for us today, guys, and we will catch you in our NHL playoff preview episode. We'll see you later.